Welcome to the Marilyn Adams Genealogical and Research Center and our continuing series on the greatest stories never told. A living genealogy, if you want. My name is Beverly Sprague, and it's my pleasure today to introduce Evelyn Peck, a longtime county resident and active member of our community. Welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you.
What would you like to tell us today?
Well, I was born on, or lived on the Rednersville Road all my life. I have. And when I got married, I just moved 5 miles up the road. But the farm I grew up on was about 1.25 miles east of Rednersville, and it was a T shape. So the house and barn were on the Bay of Quinte, and the farm ran back. And the top of the T was along the marsh that when you go coming on Highway 62 and Fenwood Gardens, the marsh there.
Yeah.
Our farm, if you look a little bit to the west, was the back of the farm was there. There were big fields back there. The pasture field, one of them was back there.
And about how many acres would that be?
220 acres.
That would be a fairly big farm.
It was a big farm, and it was mixed farm. There was a large dairy herd, and the milk went to Reed's Dairy in Belleville. The excess milk went to the cheese factory at Mountain View. And my family lived in half the house with my grandparents, my dad's parents. And I'm the third child of 6. I have brother Leonard, and then my sister Audrey, and then I'm just 13 months younger than Audrey. Then our brother Bill, Bernice, and then there was a baby boy that died when he was just a day old, and then my youngest sister Jean, and my oldest brother is just 11 years older than my sister, so we were all close. So always had lots of companions. I never had to be by myself.
And what was your birth name?
Oh, Bedford.
Bedford.
And when we were young, we were known as that English family because my grandfather actually was a blacksmith in Wales. My dad was born in Wales, and he came to Canada when my father was, I think, about a year old. And my dad at that time had an older sister and brother. So my grandmother stayed in England with the 3 little children. My grandfather came to Canada, and his intention was to join his brother in London, Ontario. But he only had enough money to get the train as far as Belleville. So he had to get off the train and find work. And he found work in the rolling mills on the, I think, wharf in Belleville.
Oh.
And then he would walk across at that time, I'm not sure it was a bridge or ferry, but he had to pay a toll to cross and he would come into Millersburg and do blacksmith work. And he always needed to get paid a little bit of cash so he could get back across. At that time, a lot of people paid in barter. So they bought the farm actually 100 years ago. In October, it will be when the farm was purchased. And my grandparents went to Belleville Market with so there was a big orchard and market garden when we were growing up. And so a lot of my memories, my early memories, would be picking up stones in the tomato patch. In fact, I remember we were picking up stones the day that my youngest sister was born.
Huh.
I don't know why I remember. Well, I do know, because my one aunt said, well, you've got another sister. I remember that clearly. And we also, with the dairy herd, at that time, the cows, it wasn't much was automated. And so cows were moved around from field to field because they did rotate crops. And the one big pasture field that I remember was at the very back of the farm. It was 1.5 miles back to get, and we children, often that was our job, to go and get the cows and bring them down. And once, in my memory, my older sister, Audrey, and my brother Leonard and I went and got the cows. And on the way down, there was a thunderstorm. And we went under a wagon to, get protection from the rain. I didn't have to bend over. I was short enough that
you scooted right
up. So I would think it was a wagon higher than they are now. But, and we also, this farm was right next to the Adams farm. Marilyn Adams, for the genealogical society, lived right beside us. And we often had to pull herrick or wild mustard out of the grain fields. And if we pulled it out of our own farm field, we didn't get paid. But Marilyn's dad, Harry, we used to earn about a nickel. And so I think I asked my sister, how many did we have to pull to get penny? We can't really remember, but usually we ended up earning about a nickel for pulling this.
Mind you, a nickel went a little further.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, I can remember going to get cows on our farm, and somebody said cows are stupid. And I said, no, they're not. No. They're very smart. If you were in a hurry or it was a rainy, cold day, they didn't want to come to get milked. They would be just a little stubborn and just say, come and get me, come and get me.
And one of the things, too, so when we got the cows to take them to the barn, we had to cross the Rednersville Road.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And at that, there was a gate that we'd bring the cows down to there was a gate at the road. And then we children, one on either side of the road, stood on and put our hand up, stopped the traffic, and we took the cows across.
Like traffic wouldn't have been too heavy.
It wasn't. It was different.
And how old would you have been about then, you think? Short enough to get under a wagon.
Yeah, and we got the cows all the time. The older you got, the faster you went. I can remember I must have been the oldest one not going to high school, and I'd end up, I'd have to take the cows back in the morning to the field and then running down as fast as I could to get to go to school.
Can you tell us a little bit about your school days?
Well, there were a lot of children in the Rednersville school. I went to SS number 2 in Elliotsburg, which was the Rednersville school. Mm-hmm. And there were so many. It was a one-room school, but there were so many that the grades 1, 2, and 3 went in the church hall at Rednersville. And the children that lived over a mile from Rednersville were picked up by this teacher who lived in Belleville. She had a big black Buick, and there probably would be 7, 8, 9 of us.
And every one of them wearing a seatbelt, I'm sure.
We were the last children picked up because anyone else, would be it could walk to school. Most of the children were from the Rednersville, they were from the village, and so I went grade 1, 2, and 3 there in the church hall, and then in grade 4 you went to the one-room school, which was only 2 farms away from our farm, and the flagpole from the school is still there. I've told some people the story that when King George VI died and Queen Elizabeth became queen, we had a woman teacher at the time, and she took us all out. We stood around the flagpole. We sang. We lowered the teacher lowered the flag, and we sang "God Save the King" for the last time, and then she raised the flag, and we sang "God Save the Queen" for the first time. And I've always remembered that.
Do you remember the teacher's name?
Oh yeah, it was Mrs. Gilmer. And I'm left-handed, and when I was growing up, I was one of the early ones that was allowed to be left-handed, and teachers didn't know how to deal with left-handed, and there were no left-handed scissors, so I had to learn to cut with right-handed scissors, and I still cut with my right hand, but I was the most terrible cutter. We had to do a scrapbook for the coronation, and my brother and sister also had to do it. They were older than me. They probably got first choice at the picture. And my scrapbook, it was sad. The pictures weren't the greatest, and none of them were cut out straight.
And you said you were in grade 4 then? Grade 3, grade 4?
I would have been in grade 4. Yeah, at that time.
You were in the school.
I was in school. It was in, yeah. I had this Mrs. Gilmer in grade 4 and 5. I know that. And then we had a man teacher, Mr. Blakely, and he lived in Belleville. And at that time, the roads weren't plowed as often as they are now, and the road had not been rebuilt either. And so wherever there was a creek across it still dipped down low, and a bad snowstorm, the teacher always got stuck about maybe 2 miles down the road, closer to Rossmore. I know exactly where it was. And we would sit in school until 9 o'clock. And if he wasn't there at 9 o'clock, we got up and ran home. We were the only family that lived close enough
to run home
that we could get home before the teacher came along and picked them all up. I loved school, but I also loved getting out of school.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing. One of my first memories of school, though, was with Marilyn Adams. And I think I've told you, Bev, the story that when Marilyn was in grade 8 and she was allowed to take a preschooler to school with her on the last day of school. And I obviously was the oldest of my family at that time that wasn't going to school. So Marilyn took me, and she had a bicycle. I remember nothing about the day in school, but Marilyn put me on the seat of her bicycle and walked me to the school. Oh. And the same coming home. That's what I remember is her. Yeah.
She probably started her teaching career a little bit then.
Well, yeah. I didn't, because she was that much older than her, I didn't know a lot about her and that, except they had a drive shed, the Adams family, and the upstairs was full of antiques, cutters and sleighs, and there were trunks of old clothes, bonnets, and there was a bearskin rug in one of them. And my sister Audrey and I and her girlfriend, she lived on the same, like at a house on the Adams farm, like separate, but it was, we would sometimes play in the drive shed, sitting in the sleighs and with the bearskin rug and pretending. And the Adams had a Newfoundland dog, a big black dog, when we were young. And one day we came home from school. The bearskin rug was on the line, and we thought that they killed the dog. We were devastated.
Oh, wow.
Our imagination.
Now, were there old clothes up there? Were you go up there for Halloween? And
No, we didn't do that.
I remember going to my friend's house and we'd dig in the trunk and find costumes for Halloween.
Yeah.
Do you have any particular memories of Halloween?
Well, I do, going to some of I can remember going to the Roblin farm because they always had a big spread on the table. We were the only farm children that lived close. And I can remember we'd be dressed up and they'd say, now who can this be?
Because it was important that you went quite disguised. Yeah, and thought nobody would know who you were, even though you lived next door. Yes.
And the Adams family had a tractor, a Farmall A tractor, very similar to the tractor one of the tractors that was on our farm. And so in the harvesting, so there were about 6 farms that the farmers worked together, and they owned a thrashing machine. And we girls got to drive those farmalls, like while they loaded them with the sheaves of grain and that, because
Were they the ones that had the 2 wheels in the front?
Yeah.
As opposed to like the 4 wheels out, they were just 2 wheels.
There was 2 wheels in the front.
Yeah, and 2 in the
and they were very small. So my first memories of a tractor would be in the back field, and at that time my dad had this great big tractor with like steel wheels and when they were loading grain and hay on the wagon, one of us, and I wasn't that old, I wasn't very big, we would be steering the tractor just slowly, like we didn't have to do anything except steer it because it just was creeping along. And if my dad hollered, whoa, I had to stand on the brake with 2 feet to get it to stop. It was such a huge mammoth thing, and there was a time when we were allowed to drive the tractor back to get the cows, like
on special occasions.
Yeah. And earlier on, we had horses too, and we could ride the horses back to get the cows. And we didn't have saddles, so it was bareback. And
were they big work horses or?
They were work horses. And probably when I was maybe 9 or 10, the Department of Health, Agriculture, had a ruling, and they sent inspectors, and you couldn't have any animals in the barn except the dairy cows, and so that's when the horses had to go, and at that time sometimes there were pigs in the barn too, and no more, and all the banty hens had to go out of the barn too.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It's
And did you have Holstein cattle as your milkers?
They weren't purebred, but they were they were basically more Holstein than.
And you said, did you have other animals? You had pigs?
There were pigs when I was very young, because I do remember the big pot that they had for scalding them in.
Yeah.
There was always, near the barn, there was always a haystack. It was, because there wasn't enough room in the.
Would it be loose hay or bales?
No, it was sheaves of hay.
Oh, sheaves.
Sheaves. They did, and I'm not sure why. They didn't have a baler yet. Mm-hmm. And it was the binder. And to pick them up, they had these slats with ropes that they lay on the wagon, and then put a layer of sheaves on, and then another sling there, and put more hay, and and load it up, and then take it to the barn. And so then there were pulleys and hooks, and you could pull the ropes and lift the sheaves up. They would be in a sling, and then if pulled another rope, and it would zip them to the end of the mow in the barn.
And that's those doors that are many barns.
Yeah. So when adults weren't around and there were empty slings, we kids,
Oh.
we kids knew how to. Somebody would hang on the slings. You'd pull them up, and then pull the rope and slung them.
And you landed in the sheep? Would you land in the sheep?
In the mow.
In the mow, yeah.
In the hay.
Yeah. Oh, that, yeah.
You know.
And you've lived to tell about it.
I know. We never did it when there was an adult around. But there always wasn't, or there wasn't always enough room for all of the hay to be in the mow of the barn. So there was always a big haystack near the barn, and it was always covered with a tarp, and it was probably 12, 15 feet tall, you know, and we were not to go up there.
Did you?
Well, of course. You said not, you know. I'm not sure whether, you know, the danger was of pulling the hay and then, you know, toppling the stack and that. But there were ladders around the barn and that. And on a moonlight night, starlight night, to get up on the top of that, you were above the mosquitoes and, you know, watching the stars and that. And Audrey and my girlfriend Glennis and I, that's where we were the night that Marilyn Dal swam. Oh. I can remember.
She crossed Lake Ontario.
Lake Ontario. And we laid up there on that, you know, the night and thinking, what would it be like to be let out in the middle of the Lake
Ontario
swimming? Because we had radios, and we didn't have TVs, and a radio though, and we knew that she was, you know, out in the middle of the lake and expecting to get, you know, across the lake. So yeah, we were.
Yeah, well, is that such an interesting memory?
Yeah,
and yeah, she was the first ever to swim across
Lake Ontario.
Lake Ontario. Yeah, and she came in Toronto, and they had parades, all sorts of celebrations of that. I remember that too. Yeah. I think I watched that on TV at some point, maybe a later.
So that's another memory of being up on top of the haystack. Though was the Boyd gang in Toronto had broken jail. Had escaped the jail, and us contemplating, were we safe in Prince Edward County? Would they come to
Boyd gang? Yeah.
You know,
because that would be big news.
Oh, it would be, yeah. But so we did. We lived, like, the barn was right at the bay, and we had a dock and a raft, and usually lots of old inner tubes that had too many patches to be used, and so whenever we had to do our chores, and then we could swim and
cool off in the bay.
Yeah, and take the raft out and flip it and do whatever, you know, dive. There was a diving board on the dock, and sometimes we fished bamboo poles. If we caught fish, we had to clean them.
Oh,
that was my mother's rule.
Yeah.
That
now, did you have leeches, or were there snakes or turtles in your bay?
There were water snakes.
Water snakes, I know.
But that was usually they were in close to shore. Yeah. So get on the raft and get out, or get in the
get out beyond the snake.
Yeah, and also when we were young, there was a lot of pollution in the bay, that the green algae, and so I can remember you just, you know, you got out to buy it and got out further in the.
I suppose from the industries from Belleville.
Well, in the barns, all the barns were along the bay, and all of the. I mean, when I was a child, the manure pile was between the barn and the bay.
And our manure pile was right beside the well.
Yeah.
And we drank that water and.
Yeah, and so my older sister Audrey and I, we always one of our chores that we always had to do was do the dishes. The oldest two girls, we did the dishes before we could play or anything. That and an early memory, my grandmother died when I was 10, so I was younger, and it was either when the baby that died was born or my youngest sister. My dad and my mother was in the hospital, so my dad always made we had porridge for breakfast, and he didn't make as good porridge as my mother did, and it was lumpy, and so we children didn't eat as much. And my sister and Audrey and I, we got busy, like I guess we were 7 and 8 year old. We cleaned up the kitchen and we fed the porridge to the cats and dogs. And my grandmother came in and chastised us. She was going to use that porridge to make a pudding. And she chastised us for being wasteful little girls.
Waste not, want not.
Yeah, yeah. And, thinking back, like, we should have been praised for cleaning up the kitchen and doing the dishes.
Yeah.
But, and that was, children had chores.
Yeah.
And we were expected to do them.
To do them, and no questions asked.
Yeah.
And did you say you had apples? And
there was an apple orchard,
and that would be your cash crop. So.
Well, my grandparents went to market, so there was apples and there was pears and there was plums and there was raspberries and cucumbers and beans. And Audrey and I, so on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we had to pick the beans, and usually it was like a bushel of green beans, a bushel of yellow beans, and that was one of the things. And we had to pick raspberries, because the raspberries went to market. And when we were a little bit older, my aunt she was living with my grandparents too at the time, and she got a job picking raspberries for Ralph Redner. They had a big raspberry patch on the Gore, and their raspberries went to Deseronto, to the factory.
To the factory.
Yeah, and they were blue raspberries, and so my aunt would get extra pay if she took extra pickers, and she took Audrey and me to pick berries. And I know Mrs. Redner wasn't too pleased to see two little girls coming, but Audrey and I were such good pickers that we soon were out picking the women, and the berries we were used to picking went right to market, and they had to be clean and not squashed or anything like that. And so after we'd been working there a little while, if a customer came to buy berries at Redner's Patch, I remember Belle saying, "Well, is there a carrier that Audrey or Evelyn picked?" Because
they knew
we knew how to pick
the good ones for
and without crushing, like. Yeah, we knew how to, and I still have a berry patch, and I still pick berries.
Now, did you can or do any preserve?
My mother, yes, everything was preserved, and so we had very little store-bought food. That I envied the children that had a banana
sandwich,
had a banana, and instead we were one of the few families that went home for lunch when we were in elementary school, and we were going home to a roast beef dinner, and we always at lunch on farm, we always had a pudding that was milk-based, like blancmange or rice pudding or bread pudding or chocolate pudding or tapioca. Like
milk was free.
Milk was free. That's right. And so we were well fed.
Yeah.
We had a lot, vegetables and there was usually a lot of meat because
you had the cattle.
The cattle,
I can remember going and thinking, I go down to my friend's house and they had bologna sandwiches, and I think, oh goody, bologna.
And my dad used to my grandfather gave my dad $10 a week to go and get some extra groceries. So like he would walk to the Redner's store in Rednersville on a Saturday evening and buy like sugar or flour probably, and usually one bag of candy, and the one bag of candy did all of us all week. Yeah, that was our treat. Yeah, it was. There wasn't a lot of extras.
Yeah,
that on the farm, because I mean I was born during the war, and
so yeah, there were even further restrictions and
yeah. Yeah, one of the things that was when we were young too, there was a huge basswood tree about 3/4 of the way back, and it was on a hill. And if you climbed to the top, you could see Belleville. And also, if you climbed to the top of the side, we like to climb.
I'm getting that picture.
we had a wooden silo. There was a wooden silo, and there was a cement. Well, the wooden one is the first one I remember, and I think the rings were about 3 foot apart on the outside.
Yeah.
I don't know how tall it was, but we could climb those rings up to the top, and you could see Belleville when you climbed to the top. Yeah.
And I think we were fortunate to grow up in kind of times when, I don't know how we survived some of the things we did, but we had common sense.
Yeah.
We knew what was safe and what wasn't, or we were with somebody who knew that. And we grew up with wonderful food and wonderful memories. And
But, I mean, no one ever supervised us when we were swimming. We looked after each other, and we also always had, in the wintertime, we had a huge skating rink on the bay too, and so the kids from all around had great hockey games on and in the pasture field there was an old hen house, and in front of it we had our baseball diamond, and the hen house was the backstop.
And the hens were your back catchers.
And the same in the pasture field. In the wintertime, we had these huge fox and goose mazes and stuff. And like, we played hard.
I think you said earlier we worked hard
and we played
hard.
But we didn't have a TV or anything.
Any devices?
No devices.
Ourselves.
Yeah. We had few books. My mother had the first edition of the Anna Green Gables, Lucy Montgomery's books, the Anna Green Gables books, and I obviously had read those books by the time I was 7, because when my sister I'm 7 years older than my sister, and Audrey and I insisted that one of her names be Anne with an E, but it wasn't. My father left out the E.
Obviously, he had not read the book.
And then thinking of Anne and Green Gables too, Anne liked puff sleeves. So I don't know when I learned to sew, and it was on a treadle machine. I wanted to make a blouse with puff sleeves, and so my mother took apart an old garment, and it wasn't a store-bought pattern, and it was a green and white checked denim, or not gingham, green and white, and I wanted little white cuffs on it and a white collar. Anyway, when I got to the sleeves, the puff sleeves, I put them in, and they weren't right, so I took them out. Put them in again, they weren't right, so I took them out. I put them in again, and they still weren't right. And so I cried and went to bed. The next morning I got up, and the sleeves were in perfectly.
Oh,
My mother had put
a little mother elf. Come in the night.
Yeah. And you know, I know it was the treadle machine that we were, I was sewing on. And so my sister, Jean, who is 7 years younger than me, maybe she was 3 or 4, and my parents had purchased a doll I think it was for a Christmas present, but the only clothes it had was a diaper on it, was in a bathtub, and I thought that wasn't right. So I sewed pajamas, and all out of used clothes, it was used clothing. Pajamas and a slacks and a top of some sort, and a coat. The coat was blue with a wine collar, and I think it was an old coat of ours that I'd taken apart.
And how old would you have been then?
Well, 10 maybe. Wow. I don't know.
Well, Evelyn, thank you so much for sharing. I've had a great time sharing the memories with you, and they bring back my memories of what we grew up with, and we hopefully will preserve these, so maybe some young children today are going to listen to this and think, boy, that sounded pretty neat. Do you think? And we played hard, we worked hard. That was how it was.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Now your greatest stories have been told. Thank you.
Thank you.